Okay, so today is June 8th, 2021. My name is Maria Saldana. I am here with Isabella Bobadilla. Thank you for being here. Um, can you start by telling me when and where you were born?
I was born November 18, 1996 in Miami Beach, Florida.
Mhm. So Miami Beach?
Yes, Miami Beach, baby.
Okay. And where did you grow up?
I grew up in Broward County,
Mhm.
and I spent every summer up until I was like 17, 18 in Lima.
So summers in Lima, grew up in Broward
Yeah.
County. And so where is your family from? You said that you spent your summers in Lima.
Yeah, my mom is from Lima. My grandma's from Arequipa in Peru, so we would visit there. My dad is from Bogota, Colombia.
Mhm. Okay. So, all right. So your mom is from Lima, your grandma's from Arequipa, your dad from Bogota. And you said that you got to spend summers in Lima.
Hmm.
Would you share a little bit about your relationship to your Peruvian identity?
When I think about it, it makes me feel like very happy. Like for some reason, like growing up, kind of like not exactly from one country. Kind of my parents split Peru and Colombia. I spent so many years in Peru that even the accent to me is very comforting. Like the smell of the food, the accent, you know when you can tell someone's Peruvian from like a mile away. It's so comforting. So I feel very happy when I speak Spanish and my accent is Peruvian. I know everything there is to know about the food. It makes me very happy.
Mhm.
And I just spent so much time there. So that's why. Um, but it feels like Peru is kind of like a faraway place that I go to visit. I'm fed, I'm loved, I travel, and then I come back home. So
Mhm.
I really had bad experiences when I'm there. It's always just like surrounded by family.
Mhm. Okay, so you said that you go there to visit, right? And so you would consider like Florida or like Miami, Broward, what would you consider home? Is that what you would consider home?
Yes, I would consider Broward home because, yeah, I was made well aware of that when I would go to Peru and I would say I was Peruvian, and then they would be like, no, you're not, you're from Miami. So I with age have felt a lot more comfort in like that middle identity. And so many people feel the same way in Miami, that Miami is home to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that sentiment a lot. I mean, also from the 305 and Broward. So I think that having to navigate like um, the perceptions of like not really being Peruvian
Hmm.
is common. How does that make you feel when you hear those
It
things?
used to make me feel like I used to get upset about it because I felt like I wasn't one or the other. But
Mhm.
then I had a professor at UF he was a bilingual professor. Name is Professor Pascual, and he really like reassured us in that we are not this or that, but we are our own identity, and it is a mix of both, and it is one, and that has its own language. It's like Spanglish is its own thing. It's not bad. It's not like good. It just is. And then after he said that, I was like, oh my goodness. Like I feel so whole. Like I don't have to prove anything to anyone because there's so many people like me that kind of struggle a little bit with Spanish, that like feel this way, feel that way. So it was like that validation I needed. And ever since then, I'm like, oh, I feel great. Like I love that identity.
That's great. Shout out
Yeah.
to your professor.
Yeah, my goodness. He was from Spain. So I was like, what? What? But he understood us. He could tell like how insecure we all felt because we were all bilingual speakers. And so he was really wonderful. He was great.
good.
Yeah.
I love hearing that you were able to have affirmation even.
Yeah.
I think it's hard, right? Because it sounds like there's like you still have a connection to Peru, whether it's like through your family or in what you've experienced when you've gone there, right? Like you said that you can like tell a Peruvian from like a mile, and it's like true, right?
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you were able to find that affirmation at in your class, your professor.
Yeah.
Is it meaningful for you to have a relationship to Peru or to your Peruvian identity?
Yes, yeah. And I can tell sometimes with like friends of mine whose parents are from somewhere else and they've never been there or they have no connection to it, that they feel like a sense of disconnect. That, yeah, I look like I'm from this country. I know everything about the food, but I've never like really spent time there. I don't feel that. I feel that sometimes when I think about my Colombian side.
Mm-hmm.
But when I think of Peru, I feel confident in that I know the neighborhood we're from. I know how to get around. I've traveled alone. I know the food. I know the language. I know how we speak on the streets. I feel very connected in that sense. The past couple years, I haven't been able to go as much as when I was little. So I do feel that sense of like disconnect as I get older. So I'm really itching to go back because the slang changes with years, like everything changes. And I feel like even with everything that's happening politically, I feel so disconnected from everything. I didn't even know half of the stuff that's going on. So I have like my own like version of Peru in a bubble. So I want to be able to spend longer times there as an adult.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, I think that I like how you said that you have this version of Peru because
Yeah.
I don't think I've thought of like, I mean, I'm Peruvian and I was born there. And I think even the ways that I've been able to go back, I don't think I've thought of like my Peru in a bubble, but it kind of does feel that way. Because it's like I feel connected to like the stuff that's happening politically right now.
Hmm.
We're in the middle of elections. There was a coup in November. But that's also come with like a lot of my own labor.
Yes.
And so it's like it's valid, right? It's valid to feel disconnected, especially when you haven't been able to go back like you used to. And as you get older, right, like you also change.
Yeah, I want to be able to like navigate the streets as an adult and experience like the different parts of the city that I couldn't see when I was little. I would go, my grandma would feed me, we'd go on paseos, and then like, it was always fun because my cousin was in town. Like I was a lucky cousin from like the US. So I wanted to experience it like as if I went to go study for 6 months or a year. You can really get to know the people, the city, everything on such a deeper level. So that's what I'm craving at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, right? Because like well, I'm gonna say we because I think that we have similar like stories in the sense that like I also haven't been back in a while. And I am also curious, right? Like as you were saying, what it's gonna be like to navigate Peru as an adult. So yeah, how do you then maintain your relationship with Peru and your Peruvian identity?
I mean, talking to my family, and if the first thing that came into my mind was food.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whenever I feel that sense of like disconnect, I go and I eat like with my mom. And then when we go eat, it makes us talk about like what's happening because you're surrounded by other Peruvians. So that is a funny way that we kind of like, chit chat about our family and see what's going on and, cheese me out about our Peruvian family. But yeah, there's so little you can do when you can't go. So you can only just like FaceTime your Dia and like how's it going? But it's hard. It's really been difficult to keep up with them, especially since Peru's gone through such a shit show during COVID, you know. Um, so I don't know when I'll go back. Hopefully next year. But for now, I'm just eating. I'm just eating nonstop.
Yeah, boo. I hear you. What do you like to eat? What are your
Well, I used to eat red meat. I stopped, but anticuchos is like what I lived off of. Like, oh my, you could smell it from like miles away. I stopped. Now I'm more into like all different sorts of cevichito, every form of papa there is, causa, shrimp causa is where I'm at right now.
shrimp causa?
Yeah, they have with like they serve like causa and then it has palta and shrimp in the middle.
Yeah.
Damn, it's really good. Um, so yeah, I mean all sorts of things. It's easy not to eat red meat, thankfully. Like, but it's just anticuchos that are like my weak spot. Um, I've been searching, trying to find some good vegetarian, vegan Peruvian spots, but it's very difficult. There's like, there's,
Yeah. It's really hard to find
no. My
vegetarian.
family would laugh in my face if I told them that. They would laugh at me.
Yeah, it's so ingrained in the culture, right? Like to not
Yes.
like
I found one nice young, like Peruvian American girl at a farmer's market who made portobello mushroom saltado.
mm,
Just like lomo saltado. I was like, you and I understand each other. It was delicious.
mhm.
But yeah, I like.
Um, so how has the experience of living in the diaspora affected your Peruvian identity? You named, right, like feeling a little bit disconnected now.
Yeah.
Does anything else come up for you as you think about your experience in the diaspora?
I always just wonder like what it would have been like if my family stayed in Peru. Like what that would have been like. It's very difficult to be away from family because for me, all my family's in Peru and all my family's in Colombia. I have very little family here, so I feel like very isolated a little bit. Like my friends have become kind of like my family. But I always wish that because I'm so close to my Peruvian side, being that we spent so much time together, I feel very disconnected sometimes because they're just so far. Um, and I feel like a lot of it's difficult because a lot of people sometimes when they move from South America, their whole family comes, or sometimes it's one person. And so for my family, it was just one. It was just, so we're very far away. Christmas, birthdays, Independence Day. We just look at pictures of them celebrating it. We're never there. So that definitely makes me feel upset all the time because I'm like, I want to be surrounded by family. I don't really know what that feels like. So I do have like, I idealize like, what would it have been like if I stayed? I wouldn't feel a type of way about my Spanish. I would speak it fluently. I could cook the food. I could have like grown up with my cousins, but I can't. What if I can do that all day? But yeah, I feel that disconnect. I don't have that sense of family here. So that is definitely difficult for me and my whole family. I know when holidays come around, oof, I don't hear the end of it. It's all of us. Um, and flying to Peru is not cheap. No, not at all.
Yeah, it's expensive. It's expensive to go.
Yeah, especially during Christmas. Everyone's trying to go.
Yeah, I don't think I've celebrated a single Christmas since I left Iquitos.
Yeah, neither am I. It's really sad. Like, whenever I see pictures of people and their huge families and stuff, I really get like cynical. I'm like, screw you and your beautiful family and food and togetherness. Because it's just me and my immediate family. But that's something that we want to do, hopefully, because COVID has made us realize, like, oh my God, our family improved. We're very close to getting sick, and so much could have happened. So we're like, you know what? Let's just go now, so we don't regret anything. So hopefully next year, that's my dream. Spend Christmas there.
Mhm. We're putting it in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Next year, Peru.
Manifestation.
Interesting to be in Peru. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that COVID definitely, it hit the whole world. And I think that, you're speaking to like something about what it means to have access to your family.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So horrible things improve. Family friends of ours that have passed away and everything. It's just like really slapped us in the face. Like it could have been our family. So let's just, it's been in a way helped repair a lot of like grudges that, my mom, her sister, everyone, because it's just so unimportant. And we're so far away. You can't, you have to really check on each other a lot more. So we've been working on that, like checking in on them for no reason. It doesn't have to be a birthday. When your uncle calls you for like your birthday, it's very disingenuous. We're really trying to check in on one another, just randomly. So we're working on that.
Yeah, extending care, right?
Yes,
It's
yes.
become so, I think, important and like beyond just like access of like it's expensive to go back, one. And then like who like I think, it brings into questions like citizenship statuses, like who actually gets to go back, who gets to travel in general.
Mm-hmm.
And then also like, right, it brings into attention like can you even afford to go back, right? Even
No.
capacity, right? Like even if you're legally allowed to, right? Like are we actually able to afford to go back? And that's really hard. So thank you for naming all of that. And yeah, we're gonna manifest.
We're manifesting anticuchos and health.
Yes, for sure. I mean, Peru is like currently, like I read that it's like leading in like the number of COVID deaths in the
Oh
world.
my God. And for just like not even having a bed or like a ventilator, it's not even from like the actual, it's just like not being able to go to the hospital. And then I've heard such horror stories of like people that have died in the hall. Oh my God, you don't even want to know. And every person has their own story of something that happened in Peru. So I'm just like, oh my goodness. A lot of my family members have come to the US just to try and get vaccinated. Just they can't risk it at all. So everyone's pulling out the money that they have out of nowhere just to make sure that they are okay. Because I'm sure, I feel very privileged being here, being vaccinated, and like going to a restaurant or like, being able to go to a mall. My cousins message me and they're like, this is crazy. How can you be doing this? Because for them, what's happening, they've seen such horrible things that they can't even fathom that I'm like, having lunch somewhere. So it's just I feel such a big disconnect because I see my privilege and my cousins are just, how could you be at the beach right now? How? We can't even go outside. Um, so I do feel my Americanness in that sense.
Mhm.
And I can't do anything about it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the reality, right? Like, I think that it, I think in a lot, like what I have heard from folks that I've talked to that are also Peruvian, they're in diaspora, it's something similar, right? It's like, it's like it's in your face all the time that we have access here to things
Yeah.
that our families back home, our families and friends back home don't have access to. And it's just like how then do we, navigate that as well? Yeah.
Yeah. I've always, growing up, always, I felt that like that I was somehow more privileged and they would make fun of me for being like the American with like a fancy phone. It was like a BlackBerry. Or like I had Heelys before anyone did. They're like, oh, she's the American. She's here. She's this. And it just like, it made me feel, I don't know. I didn't realize I was privileged until my cousins started to make fun of me. Because I would show up every year seeing every movie that they haven't seen yet, So it's just, I had to be, told, and now I try to humble myself. But I know it's hard to compare us here to them there. You just can't. You can't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we try to help. Everyone here tries to help their family. They send them money. They do this. They do that. Our family is coming to get vaccinated. They're staying with us. We're trying to do what we can to help them. But I just always feel like I could do more.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the reality, right? Like, I think that I think about that a lot with my family back in Iquitos, and like also hearing what happened during COVID, and then being here, right, in a position of power. And it's just like, I mean, I don't know if you feel this way, but it almost feels like a disservice to just send money or to just check in, when it's just like, I don't know if it fully changes like our realities, right? Like our lived experiences. So that's real. Thanks for sharing that with me. And, like, one of the reasons that I'm doing this project is because I'm interested in narratives from queer Peruvians in the diaspora. Because, like in academia, as I went through my studies, I wasn't seeing us. I wasn't seeing us reflected in work. I wasn't seeing us in larger fields of queer studies and Latin American studies, diaspora studies, and also like generally in the media. I wasn't seeing queer Peruvians,
Yeah.
And so I think that's a piece of why I'm archiving. But I also know that like being queer Peruvian is really central to how I identify. And so like, I think I would have loved, growing up to know that there were other folks that maybe identified similarly,
Yes.
like living the diaspora. And so I'm going to shift our questions a little bit to talk about queerness. And so what about your queer identity? Can you talk to me about that?
Oh, what a large question. So how do I feel about it, or like, what do I think about it? Like,
well, when you think of your queer identity,
yes,
what comes up for you?
What comes up for me, especially that it's Pride Month, I feel a lot of joy around it. I sometimes, yes, I feel like I'm also in a bubble where my friends, so many of them are queer. I live in an area of Miami that's very queer friendly. And I am at where I'm at right now, I'm very loud and proud. Now, depending on where I am, depends on how loud and proud I am, not because I'm ashamed, but because, it's just the way it is with family. You have to decide, is it worth, being yourself and making everyone uncomfortable, or saving yourself the headache and kind of just like not saying anything. So it's always been that way, navigating like being at home, being in my own apartment, being with friends, and then, so I don't know. I kind of try not to shift so much, but I think unconsciously I do it just to make other people comfortable. And now those people being my Peruvian family, my Colombian family. However, on the internet, I'm loud and proud. So if they happen to find it, they know, which is kind of like my way of like letting them all know without having to do a whole speech about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm hearing a few things. So I'm hearing, right, whether it's consciously or not, you can see yourself navigating spaces differently, right?
Of course, yeah.
And then I'm also hearing that you're also in this place, it sounds, right? Like you said that you're living in Miami currently.
Yes.
And so you are in a location that is queer friendly. And so you're also in a space, it sounds, where you're able to be out and loud, right? And proud. And right, there's also ways that I'm hearing that you're navigating what being out and loud looks like, right? Whether it's through the internet, which also I'm hearing something about labor, right? Like what it means. So like, right, like, do we want to go through those conversations, or can we allow our families to like see our posts on Instagram, right? Or something.
Yes.
Yeah, can you expand a little bit more about like navigating each of these spaces?
Well, I've kind of learned that I have to. It's not, whether I'm at home, I have been, me just being myself is very queer. So I've gotten reactions, negative reactions in the past. And so as a teenager, I would be kind of like defiant and, um, but I have to kind of, I'm still learning what being out and loud looks like. Does that mean I'm wearing a huge rainbow on my face? I thought that's what it was. Or is it just me simply like being and dressing however I like? However, I realize that my family, a lot of my family has already kind of caught on, which is great because it doesn't require me to kind of like make a whole spectacle about it. But for some closer family members, I have not told, and they're not the type to pick up on it. You need to have that conversation. Every time I'm around them, I want to because we're close in that way, but I am fearful of the reaction. So I kind of avoid it sometimes because, it's difficult. I mean, if anyone has ever come out to a Latinx parent or a relative, there's a lot of fear behind that. And especially if you've gotten negative reactions in the past, like, why would I ever want to put myself through that again? Um, but then you have to, realize that you are who I can't change the way I might dress or express myself. And that is very queer. So I can't really hide it. And I'm trying to be more conscious of when I do try and hide it because I don't want to. Um, so yeah, it's still a journey. It's still a journey. Like from where I was when I first came out to now is like night and day. So baby steps.
Hmm. Yeah, and that I think one, baby steps are great. I mean, it is a journey, right? Like to come to terms with one's queer identity is a journey in and of itself. And I think that I think sometimes we hear like or we imagine this queer journey to be very linear, but it's not, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm hearing that like even though you're out and loud, right? Like you're out loud, you're proud, there you're still navigating those things, right? It's like that
Yes.
doesn't go away overnight. And so it is still a journey, and it's also self-preservation, right? Like whether family members catch on and what their perceptions and reactions are, I think also we get to choose when we have those conversations, right?
Yes.
So it's valid. It's so valid.
I'm always torn between like sitting them down and telling them the whole thing, which I did and it went horrible, or just kind of slipping it in conversation, or I just don't know what's the right way to tell my Catholic family about that. And then I kind of already know what the reaction is going to be. So I just don't want to put myself through that. And, I just figure they'll find out with time. I told my cousins, hey, can you tell them all for me? Because I don't want to do that. They'll tell you how they really feel. I don't need to know that. I just need them to love me and blah, blah, blah. And they can say whatever they want, on their own time, but just not to me, please. But I can't control people's reactions, what I've learned, unfortunately. So it's always just, I don't want to put myself through that. But I know that if I want to be out and loud, I kind of have to a little bit. So yeah, I'm just procrastinating doing that.
But I think that's okay, right? Like I
Yeah, I have my reasons. Like if you heard the things that were said to me, no one would want to relive that. So and I know so many people that feel the same way. I'm like, when are you gonna come out to your family? They're like, I don't know, I don't know, because it sucks that you have to come out. You should just live your life. But unfortunately, with a lot of really conservative or religious people, they don't pick up a lot of the times on things you're trying to insinuate. that you kind of just have to spell it out for them and be okay with the fact that they're not going to like it. So I think I'm building myself up to that when I do tell them, I know it's going to be bad or maybe not, but I'm ready for whatever reaction it is, and life goes on.
Mm-hmm. And also, as you're sharing this, and you're talking about this process of coming out, it also makes me think of the fact that like coming out isn't like a one time thing, right?
Oh no.
So it's like even if you've told someone, right, like there's still maybe questions. It's not like people's perceptions of you like go away. If
Yeah.
anything, they may shift, they may change, they may be more. And also like I think that even in self-disclosing who you are with other queer folks, that can also be a form of coming out, right? Like meeting people for the first time, even if they are queer, you're still coming out to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really nice to have like a group of queer friends that are out and about with their friends and family, because to me that means, well, their parents are Peruvian, they're like raised kind of Catholic, and they're out. Like, how is that possible? Like, how are they okay with it? So I seeing it helps me like understand, well, like maybe I can ask them, how was that, or how did you help them kind of understand it or be okay with it? Or it's not like we have a lot of like how to or when you get a negative reaction, how can you kind of navigate that? I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea. So meeting other Peruvians and other Colombians that are out with their family, I always kind of try and ask, how did you do that? Like, what does that look like? How long did it take? So it gives you hope. And then for younger folks or like friends of mine that haven't, they ask me and then I tell them. So it's kind of like, pass down, pass down, pass down. This worked for me. Maybe it'll work for you. So we all kind of understand how our parents are a little bit like stubborn as hell. Like,
For sure. And also that's a lot of like knowledge, right? Like queer knowledge
yes.
that I think people who are not queer may not realize how much you have to learn in terms of navigating the world as a queer person.
Yeah.
Right. And I think in like you mentioned before, right? Can I just be like, you're talking about like being yourself, your authentic self is
Yeah.
queer, right? It's like inherently queer.
Yeah.
But that's also, I imagine that took work for you.
Yes, yeah, for so long. I mean, it's funny when you can like see another person and kind of pick up that they are too, not because they have a fat rainbow on their forehead, but just like the way they express themselves. That took me, and I'm still learning how to dress, because all my life growing up, I was forced to kind of dress a certain way. And it influenced, I was very hyper feminine by force. And then, on to college when I started to kind of understand what was going on with me, I would look at myself and just think, what in the world am I? Who dressed me? It was like me, but not because I wanted to, because I thought I should dress this way. And so even now I have to like do like checkpoints before I dress. Like, do I want to wear this? Why do I feel uncomfortable? And a lot of times it's because I kind of think I should dress a certain way. And at the end of the day, I just feel so not myself. So clothing, the way I walk, the way I talk, everything, I'm kind of learning how to be myself without like other people's perceptions in my brain telling me that I should dress or be a certain way. So I'm still learning. And learning how to just not like care, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Just dressing the way I want. And then hopefully it looks queer.
It's so true though, right? Like the ways that how we dress or are able to express ourselves it has a role to play in how we feel, like if it feels authentic to us, right? And
Yes.
how, like, the ways that we are, like our aesthetics, how we choose to style ourselves, like I always think of that as a form of labor as well, because it takes something to be able to go out in the world and show up and dress and carry aesthetics, right? That feel right to you. But in doing that, that's labor as well, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's just like a journey I've been on forever, you know, because your fashion is influenced by many people in good ways and in bad ways. And I'm finding that a lot of it is in bad ways. Like, I just think of myself being like 14 and forced to wear like little high heels and dresses and stuff and being so deeply uncomfortable. And then, you know, you come out as queer and you're like, no, I'm never going to dress feminine. But then wait a second, maybe I kind of like. I kind of like it. So it's kind of like not having to, there's no stereo, you know, you don't have to fit like a box dressing quote unquote gay. I just want to like dress the way I want. But it creates a lot of like, I have to always unpack that. But it's fun like messing around and trying different things.
And those perceptions too, right? Like it comes back to I find that when I talk to other queer folks, it comes down to like it's usually other people's perceptions
Yes.
that make us feel some type of way.
Yeah, and I hate that. I just want to like put on whatever because I want to, not because I'm trying to please or come off a certain way. Um, Even the other day, I was wearing so many rainbows for Pride, like the beginning of Pride. I was like, wait a second, I look ugly as hell. Like, you know, it was just like, let me show it's like rainbow capitalism real quick. um, yeah, it's funny. It's fun. And I feel like every queer person feels the same way. You come out and you have to dress a certain way and be a certain way. And then it's like, no, you just have to continue doing whatever you were doing before.
Yeah. And so, you know, you're like naming so many aspects of like this queer journey that you're going on. But in general, you know, what does queerness mean to you?
What does it mean to me? I don't know. To me, it's just like it is me. I just feel like I am. I don't have to think about it too much. Like when I kind of came out to myself, I was like, oh, of course. I was like, yeah, I am. That's it. Like I didn't have to question like, I don't think so. Am I? It was just when I saw someone else openly be queer, it just made sense. And since then, I just don't have to think about it because I am what I do is queer. I don't know. It's just part of my identity. It's like being Peruvian. Like I just am. So I don't think about it too much. I always think about it in terms of how people perceive me, never in how I view myself, because I'm very confident and comfortable with it now. And I think I always kind of have been. When I saw like I remember when I like read a thing about Frida Kahlo and how Frida was like very openly just like she just was. It wasn't like she never came out, she just was. I was like, damn, that's how it should be. That's how I feel. And that's it. So when I saw that, I felt so validated. And that was it. So it's a very hard question to answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's okay if like you don't have like answers or can't articulate, you know, thoughts.
Yeah, it's hard to articulate.
Because I think that these questions I don't know if we're really given the space to think through these things, right?
Yes, that's so true.
I feel like it's almost like, at least speaking for myself as this queer bisexual Peruana, right? Like I feel are just navigating the world, and however we have to navigate to get through.
Yeah.
That I don't even think I really think about, you know, like what does queerness mean to me? Like
that's so true.
You know, I don't know if we're given the spaces to think through it. So totally okay if like it's a hard question.
That's so true. Nobody like really makes you think, you never really spend time to think about it because you just are. And then when you really think about it deeply, it's like I have such a deep appreciation for people that were so open before me, because I don't really have to think about it so profoundly. It's just like I am, and that's it. Now I will think, I'm going to ask other people this and see what they say. I know. That's such a great question.
I'm glad it is sparking thought.
It is. It is. I'm deep in thought.
So what does it mean for you to simultaneously identify as Peruvian and queer? You've touched a little bit about, how you've navigated within your Peruvian family. What does it mean for you?
I've really hardly ever met anyone that was other than you. And it was like when I met you, and then a very small handful of people that were, it was like just blew my mind, because all the time I've been in Peru, I've never I've thought about it, but I've never been in a queer space or whatever. To me, those two identities just didn't it just wasn't possible to be out and proud about both of them. It was like, in this space I am Peruvian, and then in this space I'm queer. I shut up about one and the other, and then I shut up about one. So I've never really been, other than when I speak to other friends like you or whatnot, that we celebrate both. And, I learn from other people that in so many different cities in Peru, there are nonprofits for the queer community, for the trans community. And in my mind, I'm like, where the hell has this been the whole time? It's just that my family doesn't talk about it. My family doesn't know it exists. My family doesn't, in their mind, because quote unquote, everyone is straight in my family. We don't even know that exists. So I just never knew. And growing up in Peru, I heard such horrible, transphobic and homophobic comments. And that the idea of me coming out, it just wasn't going to happen. And I was going to the last time I was there, and I just could not get myself to do it. I told a cousin, and I had, she knew because she knows me, but, even she recommended maybe it's not best to tell the rest of the family, because, I'm in this bubble, I go and then we have a great time. And I just feel like there's a layer of myself that I'm keeping because I don't want to get hurt, but they're my family. They deserve to kind of know me on a deeper, full level. But yeah, every time I say, next time I go to Peru, next time, I'll tell them next time. But those conversations are not easy. They're not easy at all. So those two identities for me hardly ever come together. If I'm in a queer space, it's folks from so many different backgrounds. So I have never been in a Peruvian queer space. That would be amazing. That would be great.
So I'm hearing that, it sounds like your identities haven't really overlapped, right? You're Peruvian.
Hardly ever.
Okay. Do you feel are there spaces that you feel like they could coexist, or?
Well, yes. I feel in Miami, but see, it wouldn't be Peruvian. It would be more like Latinx. There's a lot of parties and get-togethers that are very Latinx queer focused. Mm-hmm. There's such wonderful spaces, and everyone at these parties we're all kind of the same person, I feel. However, everyone's from different backgrounds. Mm-hmm. Colombian, Venezuelan, Puerto Rican, Cuban, but we all kind of have this understanding of this space is so unique. You can listen to reggaeton and shake your body and be gay as hell and not feel any like any judgment.
Mhm.
That is very hard to find. Thankfully, Miami has one party like that. And I'm sure in New York there's a bunch of other ones, but those are hard to find. But when we are in those spaces, oh my God, you like have never felt so free. It's wonderful. We need more of those.
Yeah, we need more of those.
Yeah.
Because it's so true, right? Like, also, grew up in Miami and Broward, and the queer scene is there. There's a big queer scene in those areas.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily queer Peruvian, right?
No. It's like all the queer folks. I mean, Miami has so many minorities, as folks from South America, Central America, Haiti, Jamaica, all these like awesome places that when these queer spaces are like a mix of all of the people that don't feel safe going in other places. It's not always reggaeton or Latinx. I mean, it's never Peruvian, but it's a mix of all these people that feel ostracized everywhere else. So we have that one thing in common, but it would be deeper if it was Peruvian. Of course, we need to make our own.
We do. We're
Yes.
we're gonna manifest that as well, right?
We're manifesting so many things right now. I have a headache.
Days. A headache. Oh my
I
God.
have a headache.
A queer Peruvian space. What else did we manifest? Going home to Peru for the holidays with our family.
Yes. Some lomo saltado.
Soltados, some ceviche. All these things are manifesting, putting out in the universe. Okay. So, as you're talking about, these spaces that you occupy, you were also mentioning some perceptions from Peruvians, right, towards queer folks. And
Yeah.
so the question is, how do you feel Peruvians perceive queer folks in general?
It's hard for me to really get an understanding because I never spoke about it, because the little I heard, enough for me was enough to be like, let me never bring this up. It depends, because I'm sure in every part of Peru is different. In Lima, my family's very city, and even still, they're still a little still very Catholic, very conservative. So I cannot even imagine in other parts of Peru. However, I just feel like Catholicism plays like a really big factor, because I know in more indigenous parts of Peru, this homophobia is not as, at least from my understanding, I feel like the homophobia is not as ingrained as it is in the religion like Catholicism. Because I met a couple of folks last time I was there that were native to the area in Cusco, and I kind of, came out to one of the guys there very sporadically just to see, because I knew he was very spiritual. He was native to the area, and he kept talking to me about Pachamama. And I thought, this man, for some reason, gives me, I think he would be very understanding. And he was incredibly accepting, understanding, loving. And it was like a different Peru, like a different version of Peru that I had never really been opened up to, because we're from the city and you don't meet as many indigenous folks there. So when I spoke to him, I was like mind blown, because he explained to me just how, Pachamama creates us, the earth as we are, and all. He gave me the whole spiel, and I loved it. I felt so connected to him. I felt so connected to the earth, to the mountains, to everywhere we were. I felt very connected to Peru in that moment. So there's so many different types of Peruvians, but growing up, it's been very shaped by Catholicism. So it really depends. It really depends who I'm talking to, but it's definitely scary. And I don't know what being out and proud looks like in Peru. I don't know where I would even go. I don't have friends there that are. I would need to be shown by someone else those spaces. And I'm sure if I were to go to a gay bar in Lima, I think my mind would be blown. And I'm sure there are many, but that's like a big goal of mine. It would feel very full circle.
Yeah, I'm glad that I'm grateful that you named the experiences that you had, and you're naming like the city, you're naming that you spoke to someone who is native to Peru, and and just hearing the differences in your experiences is really valuable, because I think that there is no clear-cut answer, right?
Yeah.
Like, absolutely. And I think also personally, as I get older, like I feel similar, right? Like every time I go to Peru, it's to visit family, and my family in Peru, at least from what I know, has not come out to me like no one, at least in Peru, has come out to me as queer and or trans. And so like for me, the same, right? It would be full circle for me to be able to go as this like grown adult,
Yes.
queer venues, to these queer spaces. From what I hear, at least in Iquitos, sometimes they're like very kind of like on the DL, they're a little bit more underground. And so I'm grateful that you touched on those pieces. And so at the same time, right, like I think that we know that queer trans Peruvian face disproportionate amounts of harm, of violence, whether that's in the States, right, where we're both in the States right now, in Florida, whether we see that, with queer and trans folks generally. And we also, you even touched on it, right? Like the little that you heard, that you did hear, was enough to scare you, right?
Yeah.
And that is harmful, right? Maybe it's not violence enacted physically, but that in and of itself can be really harmful. And so again, a big question, but I'm curious, how do we as queer Peruvians, like how do we survive this, right? How do we survive this harm, this violence that we experience, or that we may experience?
I think I'm always torn between like acceptance through visibility and then protecting yourself and just being quiet. Because visibility is wonderful when you see someone that has a platform that is visible and out. It's very wonderful because that is what leads to acceptance. But then you read the comments, you hear the things people say. Oh my God, it's horrible. What I hear family members, family friends say about celebrities, people in Peru that are out. ¿Sabías que él es gay, whatever, que es trans? The things is horrible to hear, but people have to be out and visible and have just knowing that you are going to get just absolutely demolished by everyone around you. But that is what's been happening for centuries. You just need to be out. And that's what I'm kind of like struggling with, is that the only way my family will be understanding and loving to other queer people is if they know someone who is. And is that someone? Me, that one cousin that is. And they know that I'm not crazy, I'm not this, I'm not that. So that means that other people must not be, confused or crazy or whatever. So I have to be out and be that little person for my family. So when they meet someone else who is, they'll be nice to them because they know I am nice. And that sounds so ridiculous, but that's always what I hear. People won't assume trans women or men aren't quote unquote mentally ill, like I have heard so many times, if they know someone who is, and they know someone who is just a normal human being. So it needs to be, we need to be as out as we can if it is safe. So let's say, for example, I'm here in Miami. If I'm out on, let's say, Facebook, my family will just have to have their side conversations about me as much as they like. But that's the only way they'll learn to understand it, or at least respect the LGBTQ community. God, it's like the bare minimum. But it's hard to sacrifice your peace by being out, but it kind of has to. If you can, you kind of just have to be out. Mm-hmm. But that's so scary. It is so scary.
Yeah, so many pieces in what you shared, right? So I'm thinking about, you mentioned this part about being visible. And it makes me think of, like I've seen so many people in Peru, queer and trans folks in Peru, who are visible, who are out on their social medias, who are very vocal about it. And then you read the comments.
Oh my God.
Or you read about what they go through, like physically in the streets. You read about the violence that goes on, and it's almost like, okay, what is the price, right, of visibility?
Yeah.
And it makes me think, right, like, does visibility equal safety? Does it equal?
No, oh, not at all. Not at all.
No, and does it?
What is the middle ground?
Right? Does it equal access to getting our needs met? Because I think that no matter, right, there's so many people with thousands and thousands of followers, queer and trans folks, all over the world, that have a following, that are doing the work, right? That I think are really critical in the fact that they know that they have, at least a privilege in a sense that they're able to be out, visibly like this. And I don't see them being protected, right? I don't see them having access to things like healthcare, mental health access, like, or wellness in general, right? Where is their payment? And it's so true, right? Like what is this middle ground of visibility? And when you were speaking, I also heard that, like this piece that you feel that you have to be out, right? Because then your family knows that
Mm-hmm.
Your family is then able to see queer folks as human beings because they are associated with you, right? And I'm wondering if you could expand on what that feels like, because, I'm hearing that, and you can tell me, right, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it also sounds like that's a big responsibility to take.
Oh, huge. It's huge. Like, you have to be the spokesperson. The amount of dumb questions I've gotten from family members just because they don't know anyone who is, and they don't feel comfortable enough to ask. Maybe like that one gay coworker they have, they feel comfortable asking me. It is labor. It is so much labor emotionally, because you have to put yourself up to receiving negative comments, or even just looks. That's all it is. It's just getting like a look of, what are you wearing? What are you this? What are you that? Who are you dating? It is a lot. But to me, that is the price I have to pay for wanting to be out. Here in Miami, I don't feel that as much. Maybe when I'm surrounded by family, I feel that. So I kind of like have to pick and choose if I have the emotional like energy to answer those sort of questions when I'm around family. Yeah, it's very difficult. But I just kind of have accepted it. It's just, that is the way, unfortunately, it is. And I can't change their perceptions of me. So if I can just be as authentic as I am and just accept whatever questions I get, that's just it is. I'd rather do that than be in the closet. So I've just kind of made that peace with myself. Like, the day I came out, I was like, I am comfortable enough to receive these questions and to defend myself and my community, because I would rather do that than be in the closet. Because I felt that, and it was horrible. So you know, in the past, at least when they were talking, when I would hear these negative comments, they were talking about other people. You know, hi, this person is that. Can you believe I saw this trans person here? Oh my God, que asco de que this, que this. Now they're talking about me when I talk about queer folks. So they are not as mean, as aggressive, because they kind of are learning a little bit through me. At least my parents are. God bless them. But they have become more understanding and accepting of queer folks because of me. But I had to answer a lot of ignorant and insulting questions for years, and still am sometimes. But I've kind of, you know, get thicker skin through the years. But 18-year-old me was like so sensitive. Oh my goodness.
I just I'm grateful for all that you've shared in what this has looked like for you, because I think that, you know, like even at the end, you know, you mentioned little 18-year-old but I think sometimes, you know, it doesn't matter how thick our skin is, it doesn't mean it doesn't affect us.
That's true.
Like it's still labor. It's like you have I assume that people have access to the internet, at least
Yes, I do.
at least un poquito.
That's so true.
The library.
Literally Google that. Like,
Right?
don't ask me that question.
And so it is still labor. And again, right, I think moving through harm and violence is still a very real occurrence.
Yeah.
No matter where you are in your queer journey. So thank you for sharing that. And I wonder if there are any other identities that are salient to you. You know, you talked about queerness, your Peruvianness. If there's anything else that's particularly salient.
What do you mean by salient?
Like identities that feel important to you, or that are standing out to you right now.
I think those two have been the ones that have taken me so long to be comfortable with, that now they are like, I'm very comfortable in saying that I'm queer. I'm very comfortable in saying that I'm American and Peruvian and Colombian. I used to have my job as an identity, and I'm really trying to push away from that. You know, I just am. So, I don't know. Those two identities for me have taken so much labor to be comfortable with, that now that I am like, please God, I can't take another one. I can't. I can't. You know, I used to think, like, growing up, because our class changed. We were middle class, then we were lower class, then it was this, then it was that. It was very hard to kind of, in college, I felt that a lot. I felt like I am a first generation lower to middle class. Like, I felt that identity a lot because I was first generation, and there was so much pressure to graduate, because my whole family abroad here, everyone was like, please, like, for the love of God, graduate. So I would say first generation is definitely something I'm proud of. But no, I think that's about it. But I'm sure with time, we all are shape-shifting, changing. Those two to me are my two tokens that I'm proud of.
That's great. I mean, you know, I think that queerness and Peruanidad, to me, you know, as like you're hearing this, you know, it's the two that are the most that you work through, and I think I feel similarly in that. Like it's been really, like I said earlier, it's been really central to how I've, like, you know, how I identify, how I've moved through the world. So yeah, and you know, like, as you know, as my friend, but also like to share, you know, like I do healing work that centers queer, trans, Black, Indigenous, people of color. I've been trained in Black feminist methods and like tenets of healing justice, right? So I like that's the work, and I'm also trying to move away from like work as an identity, and I also,
Oh, yes.
you know, like I resonate with you in that sense, and I also feel like this, you know, this healing work um, has also been really central into how I've like been thinking through these interviews, because I get curious, right? I get curious as to how folks are centering wellness, how they view healing, how they are healing. And so the next few questions are going to focus a little bit more on those aspects. So what does wellness look like for you?
Wellness for me is something I had to learn on my own. I was never really taught this. I was forced to learn it by literally being stressed to the point of like insanity in college. And that to me looks like being conscious of how much stress I'm putting on myself and intentionally finding times throughout the day or week to breathe and to be mindful of what I'm doing. Every single thing that I'm doing, whether it's driving, walking, being with someone, to me, has changed my life, the way I view myself, the way I view my interactions, my identities, everything. So wellness for me looks like meditation. I do that as much as I can because that's what helps me. And I'm begging my family to try and adopt some sort of wellness, be meditation, but being conscious of how, you know, what their emotions look like, how they choose to react to it. Because just so many years of bad habits and practices of just, you know, very, you know, from South America and Peru, a lot of people don't view, they just don't have mindfulness at all. A lot of the times at all, at least where I grew up. There was never talk of wellness, taking care of yourself. You just sacrificed, you gave and you gave and you worked until you could not. And that to me is just not what life is about at all. So I'm trying to break those habits and teach my family a little bit, but you know, they're stubborn. So I find that when you hit such a like stressful point in your life, you are forced to learn how to take care of yourself. And that's what happened with me, you know. And I'm very grateful for it because I have a lot more joy in the day-to-day. And I'm very thankful that I started meditating.
Yeah. I'm glad, you know, it sounds like you have forms of wellness that work for you. And I'm glad that you've been able to find that. And, you know, as you were speaking, you also mentioned, you know, like what growing up without maybe like these notions of wellness, of taking care of yourself, right? Like, because I hear similar things like generationally in terms of like it was all work, right? Like our families were trying to survive. There was
Yes.
no time for rest, you know, and it was like meditation, okay, when I have to feed you.
Literally, like, why are you depressed? You have a roof over your head. Like, what? Yeah, I'm unlearning those things, you know, through especially therapy. I, you know, had to start on my own. And even when I tell my family I'm doing therapy, they're like, why, what's wrong? What's wrong? What happened? I'm like, nothing is wrong. You know, I mean, little things are kind of wrong, but it's not like nothing traumatic has to happen to you to seek help or kind of someone to teach you how to take better care of yourself. Because what they've been doing has been passed on to me, and you know, it's passed on for my grandparents. So I'm unlearning those things as best as I can, to just trying to be conscious of what has been passed down to me, whether it's, you know, views on femininity, cis, hetero, just societal norms, just anti-wellness. And I have to be that person that weird quote unquote person in my family that has a therapist and meditates. Like, what's wrong with her? Is she okay? No, I'm like doing better than everyone else.
For sure. I think that it's hard, right, to like have those conversations with our families or folks from other generations. I think that lately I'm seeing a shift towards thinking about rest and thinking about wellness.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, and I'm also glad, like it's like I don't want to be out here, getting myself to the point of stress, like you mentioned.
Yes.
Right? And
Yes.
we do not need that, and we do not need to put ourselves through that, right? Like I think the world is very demanding. And it makes it like the world that we're navigating makes it feel like it's we don't have a place in it. I think queer Peruvians out here make it, and so I'm glad that you found sources of wellness. What about healing?
Healing for me, I never really understood what like that meant until I started therapy. Because I didn't think I had anything to heal from, like I was, nothing traumatic has happened to me. And then, I start to open up about what it was like to come out. And, and my therapist says, well, it seems like you haven't healed from that. I'm like, no, I'm fine. And she's like, then why are you crying? So I'm like, ooh, maybe I do have to heal, but I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that like. I assume with time things get better, but I guess not. Like you have to actively work on, different things that you've different things that have been said to you, different experiences. It doesn't have to be traumatic, but things build over time. And the toll it takes on you physically. I've kind of grown up around people having migraines, stomach issues from stress, anxiety, and that's just how it is. Like my back hurts, because everyone around me has sacrificed so much that these are just the things you have to experience because you're sacrificing. And I feel almost ridiculous telling my therapist, like, I get these anxiety attacks and it hurts my stomach, it hurts my head, I get this. But that's just how it is. It's just stress. And she's like, it doesn't have to be like that. But I've never known another like way. So definitely through reaching out. But I didn't even consider doing seeking a therapist till I spoke to you or spoke to other friends that were so open about how it benefited them. And I thought, well, maybe that could work for me. But no one in my family even does that. No one in my friends of family. And if they do, they don't tell anybody because it's embarrassing. So I tried to tell my family, my therapist told me this, my therapist told me that, to show them that it's really doing me good. So now they're like, maybe I should see one, maybe. So it's really just by normalizing it that hopefully other people do it. But I'm so grateful that you told me about yours because I love being able to have someone navigate through and help me heal and what that even looks like. I didn't know I had to heal from anything. It seems like I have to from a lot from what she's telling me.
I like you mentioned earlier, like that's a hard question. When I asked you something about queerness, and like I think even in asking you questions, about wellness and healing, I don't know if we think about that either. I think it's just become something that like either we have to be conscious of that we're doing, like I'm going to do this to heal. I'm going to do this.
Yes.
And so even for me, right, my notions of healing change depending on where I'm at in my life. And so it's okay to like not know or have this concrete notion of what healing is. I think that we don't just like heal and then we're done, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Life continues, and you think that you're healed from one thing, and the next thing you know,
something else hits you.
Yeah, something else hits you. You're crying in therapy about something you thought you were good with. That's real. And it, you know, it sounds also though like that navigating healing, you know, through therapy or through other ways, right? Maybe in finding you know, finding things that are helping you heal. It still sounds like you're able to like find your grounding.
I try my best. I just wish those around me didn't have such a small notion of what healing looks like. Because when I get to know everyone around me, the things my mom has experienced, my dad has experienced, my partner has experienced, I'm like, you can heal from this. I can't do it for you. I can't help you. And I just wish everyone. It's very hard also to find a therapist, to pay for one, all that stuff. It's not easy. But even just having practices of wellness in your day to day just changes everything so much. And I know especially folks that have migrated from Peru to here, that in itself is very traumatizing. And I just hope and wish that you know, the things that my parents had to do to get here and to leave their family, be away from their family forever, it's very difficult. And I can't teach them how to heal or how to, you know, I can just hope that they will take those practices on themselves. But it's only through visibility, by seeing other people talk about it. So I'm trying my best. But we, you know, normalizing it bit by bit is, I mean, that's how I had such a small notion of therapy too. And you helped normalize it for me. And now you know, I feel just such an amazing shift from when I started to now, having a professional like help me out.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting too, right? How we can hold like what our families have gone through and also be able to separate ourselves from that, right? Like
yeah,
it's an interesting thing, I think, because I hear that from other folks, from other queer Peruvians that I've talked to, that they're able to see it, right? They can recognize it. They can recognize that their families have gone through. And right, we're autonomous beings. Like we are individuals, and we're gonna move through the world differently. And so I'm glad that therapy is working for you. I'm glad that, you know, it's something that, you know, it's making you feel good. And so I have a few more questions before.
yeah.
But I'm curious as to, you know, like before, I remember you touching on meeting other queer Peruvians or other queer folks, you know, that helped you, or that you know, provided this source of support for you. And so I'm curious as to what community looks like for you.
What community?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, that looks like social media to me. Like having pages that are dedicated to this, and just seeing representations, being updated on what's happening, events that's happening, seeing people gather. That to me is what community looks like. And I'm excited for when things start to kind of open up again, because having folks that run organizations like that will in turn help me go to like meetups and kind of get to know other people, because there have to be groups that are like queer and Peruvian, queer and Colombian, this and that. Like I really want to get like deeper in that community, but I have never been in that kind of community. So I think for me right now, it looks like social media, like representation.
Mm-hmm.
Dip my toe in that, and then maybe if I feel brave enough, I'll go and meet people in person. But you know, those sorts of meetups and gatherings are what I hope to go to soon. So I know out there.
And so what does queer community mean to you then? Or what does that look like for you? What does queer community look like?
That to me is like comfort. That's my friends. I mean, growing up, that's all my friends were. So to me, I felt like I was in a bubble. That when I did come out to other friends that aren't, it was a shock. When I came out to family members, it was a shock. And I forgot, I just am surrounded by queer folks. that community to me looks like, I mean, everywhere I go, like out to is like a queer friendly bar. It's just like I feel most comfortable when I am surrounded by the community. I mean, even in roller skating, I roller skate like with such big group of folks. Almost all of them are, just because I didn't know that was a thing, but it is very common that they are. And I just feel like I naturally gravitate towards it all the time. I don't consciously do it. I just, naturally gravitate towards those groups, which I'm very glad.
Feel like you found like your queer community?
When I think of roller skating, I think yes. Like I think in that community, there's just so many queer folks. Like I just feel so like connected to them. When it comes to my friends, I think yes as well. I mean, we're still kind of sometimes I don't know. When I think since I'm still in South Florida, I feel like sometimes I'm surrounded by a lot of friends from high school, from when I was younger, when I was in the closet. A lot of them are not out and queer. Sometimes I have to kind of seek that community out a little bit. So I have to get out of my comfort zone a little bit. But I think yes. And I hope so with time, especially I'm considering maybe moving somewhere in the future. That will be the community I feel most comfortable like seeking out or going to meetups or anything. It just feels so naturally comforting to be surrounded by queer folks. So it comforts me knowing that there are communities and little group meetups for any sort of thing you can think of. I mean, the other night we had like a gay roller skating meetup. I know, it's just like, so I think I have found my community, but I'm excited to kind of push myself a little bit more to be in different spaces. I feel sometimes like I'm being pulled back a little bit. Internalized homophobia and all that jazz.
Mm-hmm. and that's so real, right? Like,
Yeah, it takes forever to kind of like really get over. Baby steps.
Baby steps, add that to the manifestation list. that like in this wherever the spaces that we're at, right? Like it sounds like you gravitate towards queer folks and so right, we're manifesting that queer folks are where you're at,
Yeah,
it's important. Like it really is to be surrounded by queer folks when that's meaningful to you, and it sounds like that's something that's meaningful to you.
It is. I know. It's like my family asked me the other day, like, is everyone queer? I'm like, yes, I think like I think so. And it's not like, I guess it's just unconsciously we gravitate towards like, I don't have to explain myself to you. You don't have to explain yourself to me. We just like understand one another. And that's how I feel when I go to like a gay bar, when I'm surrounded by other queer friends. I just feel like we have a general understanding. A lot of us have gone through the same thing, have been told the same things. We don't have to prove ourselves to one another. We just like are. And we don't have to come out to one another. When I go to, at a thing for a job, if I networking event, it just feels like labor to have to kind of, I don't want to have to come out, but I just like, I don't know. I want to also, I don't, and I do. Because it is part of, people ask me to explain about myself. I want to bring it up, but I just don't know if it's quote unquote relevant or necessary or, I don't know. Always having to come out is very frustrating sometimes, depending on the space. In other spaces, I'm like dying to kind of just, be myself as genuinely as possible. When I'm doing creative projects and whatnot, I want to be like the most authentic person. But if I'm at a job interview or if I'm, talking to folks for my job, I keep it very, and I hate that I kind of do that. I think that's hetero society in my brain telling me to not make other people uncomfortable. We're working through that. That's a word there before.
Those baby steps, right?
Yes.
And also, yeah, as you were speaking, right, like something that came up for me was you have named it before, right? Like you don't have to think of queerness, you just are.
Yeah.
So it seems almost like a contradiction then, right? Or and you can again correct me if I'm wrong or if I've misunderstood, but it almost seems like a contradiction then when you're in spaces that you're having to decide if it's relevant, right? Like to share that,
That's true. Yeah.
like
It,
because if you just are, right, and I hear this sentiment a lot that like how queerness is something that's just so inherent, I feel, for at least the folks that I've spoken to, other queer Peruvians. It's something that comes up, and again it's maybe not for everyone, but it becomes something that I hear shared among us. And so yeah, it's like interesting, right, how we have to still think about
yeah,
it.
that's very true. It really just depends on the space. I try to remind myself that just by me being, I am, and I don't have to prove myself to anyone. But sometimes, depending on the space, I kind of want people to know, so they know that if they say anything, you know, I don't know. I just sometimes it helps me, sometimes it hurts me, and I'm trying to remove myself from the spaces where me being out could be negative. Um, so I just am trying to just be live my life as authentically as I am. I don't have to constantly come out to people. I just am. Am with who I am with. My identity is, um, but sometimes I want to be that visible person in the room, because it has helped other people in the past, and I'm in it with a group of people. I'm very out and loud if I think it might be necessary or relevant, because then other people will come to me and ask me questions about it and tell me that they're questioning or whatnot. And I like to be that person that people can talk to about it. Um, so it's really just like deciding when to talk about it, when to not. But I try to make every space as queer as possible.
That's also important, right? Like um to be able to know if this space could potentially like bring negative comments, harm.
Yes.
That's also important, right? Because then it helps. I imagine it helps you navigate how much energy you put in the space, or right, like
Yes.
how you protect yourself in these spaces.
Yes. And I feel like every queer and trans person does that. You kind of have to read the room and realize, okay, am I going to be, do I have the energy today to be out and loud about it? Or am I just going to kind of not say anything? But in the past, for me, when I was young, seeing other people be loud, like out, I would go up to them and ask them questions like, but how are you queer and you're dating a man? How are you out? How does that look like for you? What does that look like? I could not understand that you could be bisexual. And it wasn't until someone in the room was unapologetically out and loud in a room that I knew had very conservative folks in it. But this girl was very brave. She just was her authentic self. And then at the end of the day, I pulled her aside and I talked to her, and she helped me immensely, break it down for me. So ever since that, I kind of really try and be that person in the room for younger folks or for other folks that um, you know, that might feel the same way I felt when I was younger. So the visibility is everything for me, because it became real when I saw someone, um, and so I just try and be that, when I have the energy for it. It is a lot of labor.
Yeah, it is a lot of labor, right? And I think that there's something really powerful in invisibility, right? Like, again, always navigating what that means for us. And there is something really powerful. And so what about pleasure? Does that come up for you at all when you think of your intersecting Peruvian and queer identities? Or how
What do you mean? Like pleasure in what way? Pleasure like like a sexual pleasure, or like, I don't know.
Well, I guess then, how do you think of pleasure? Like when you hear of pleasure, what comes up for you?
Pleasure to me, when I think of that, I think of it having like a sexual connotation. But then you can also like, I'm torn between enjoyment and pleasure. I feel like there's a difference.
Okay.
Pleasure for me, when and thinking of it in like a sexual way, like growing up Catholic, you think that was ever a conversation that was had or thought of or spoken about? Like children just popped up out of magic. People never did anything. So that, of course, how do you think that affected me? Like being a teenager and like understanding what pleasure looks like in a heterosexual relationship. But then imagine when I was coming out, I was Googling everything. I was YouTubing everything. I had no idea. And then feeling comfortable and even thinking that you deserve pleasure is a whole other like thing you have to learn on your own. Because talking to my family about how can I, when you're young and you're, having those first experiences, you have no one to confide in. And that can be very dangerous. That can be very traumatic. That can be very painful when you don't know what that looks like. So, I mean, to this day, I'm still navigating that and being comfortable, knowing that I deserve pleasure. But growing Catholic and Peruvian, that word was never talked about ever.
Yeah, that's real, I think. And also, I think that there's something about pleasure that is not spoken to, like it's not spoken about to women. I feel right, like growing up as a young girl, people aren't talking to us about pleasure.
No, of course not.
Or even right, like putting aside the word pleasure, what makes us feel good in general, right? Like I never was asked, does this make you feel good? Right? Like does putting on this outfit make you feel good? Does eating this food make you feel good? Right? It was like it's just I feel like the experience that at least I went through and what I hear from other women and femmes is that pleasure wasn't really spoken to, like to us.
Never. No. Even asking myself those questions, does this food make me feel good? Do I feel good in what I'm wearing? I'm learning to ask myself that now, an adult, when I should have been asking myself that when I was 14. Because that is when the real, like, I really was going through it. Because I was just doing things because I had to, because I had no choice. I had to dress a certain way. I had to eat a certain way. And I have to unlearn those things now, that every single thing I have to consider, does this make me feel good? Does hanging out with this person make me feel good? Does wearing these pants make me feel good? Does being with who I'm with make me feel good? Those constant checkpoints and being conscious of the things that you're doing. I mean, you're lucky if you can like ask yourselves that in your lifetime. I feel like so many people aren't. They're just kind of going day to day, going through and not realizing that they don't feel good half the time. You just feel kind of numb. You're just doing what you think you should. So I feel like I have never been asked that. So thank you for asking that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. So right, maybe moving away from the word pleasure, but thinking about, what makes you feel good, right? Are there things in your life currently that make you feel good?
Yes. Yeah. Now more than ever, I think yes, because I'm more conscious of what I want to do and what makes me happy. And yeah, being in a creative space, I, took on acting a little more over a year ago. That makes me feel amazing. That was never something that I ever considered growing up. Like a job in the creative field never was a job that was thrown my way. I had to kind of find it myself. That makes me feel like a confidence and a joy that I have never felt before. Roller skating makes me feel strong, very confident, very like sexy in my body. Like I've never really like danced before, but learning how to dance on roller skates has kind of like segued into getting stronger, like moving my body, all those things that I've never done before. So I'm really trying to push my life and my future towards those things because everything I had done in the past just I felt okay. Like I felt like it was good enough. But it wasn't until I experienced something that made me feel amazing that I'm like, I'm never going back to what I used to. And so I'm very glad I found that now. Because I know so many people that are kind of in a limbo of not knowing what they like, what they want to do. And I'm very fortunate to have found that now. But having to explain that to other people, what affecting me now is other people's perceptions, which I hate because going a creative route is very difficult and you get a lot of judgment. But it's all about growing a thicker skin a little bit, just kind of feeling confident enough in myself and in my decisions because I know it makes me feel good and I'm following my gut. So I think with time that just kind of owning what I'm doing. Yeah, my creative side of my brain is very active right now. No more Excel sheets. No more Excel sheets. Everything I've ever had to do. Like, I know I feel very alive. I feel very, very alive, and especially this year, COVID has made me really take the time to reevaluate my decisions, my choices, my wants, my needs, everything. So moving forward, we're only doing what makes us feel good.
Absolutely. I love that you feel alive.
Yeah, dude, it really like it took it just like I really just spent a lot of time with myself understanding like what I want to do and if I fail, then I'm going to fail. If I have to really take a leap of faith and I trust myself and I trust my gut and I feel amazing in what I'm doing. I just have to really push past other people's perceptions of me and trust in myself that I will catch myself if I fall somehow. So my family is, kind of, they're like, oh, you want to be a roller skating actor? Okay. Like, okay. They're kind of like, well, you have a degree in case. So yeah, with age, I've gotten a lot more comfortable with myself and my decision making and kind of like my ego is not as fragile. I don't have as much of an ego with time as I learn to kind of go through this like journey of mindfulness. I'm just trying to do what makes me happy. We'll see how that goes.
You know what? You're there, right? You're in that journey. I can see that you're more confident. Like I mean, I see it, right? And like currently you're glowing. I mean, people listening aren't gonna see your glow, but just
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I feel it. And I think it shows like in my work, in my, in my roller skating, my body's gotten stronger. I feel confident in myself. When I'm acting, they make me do the craziest things, but I just feel it's just such a release of emotions and of, tension that I'm able to do and I get paid for it. Oh my goodness. Crazy, crazy, crazy. So I'm going to go for it and we'll see how it goes.
well, the best of luck in that, right?
Oh, thank you, friend. Thank you.
The universe knows, and
I know.
I don't even know.
Just know I'm manifesting every day. I'm manifesting $20. I'm manifesting,
That,
any positive vibes, I'll take them.
well, all the positive vibes your way, and that payment is important. So payment, so my last two questions, what do you wish for yourself?
I just wish, like, I tried to reflect on myself when I was younger, and I was so fragile. I had such a sensitive ego. I just was so unsure of myself and afraid to really live authentically. I dressed different. I talked different. I was shy. I didn't want to be looked at. And I see a huge shift at where I'm at now, but I still see like so much work that has to be done. I wish for just confidence, mindfulness, no ego, just really trying to lead with kindness all the time. It's very difficult. I see so many different insecurities when it comes to my identities, just like internalized homophobia, the fear of speaking Spanish sometimes, the fear of being in Spanish speaking, spaces of just fear of judgment. It all comes back to the fear of judgment. And I just really wish for myself to be free of that. That's just trying to be as authentic and genuine as possible and not being dictated by other people's perceptions. But that's always a work in progress that everyone is working on. But oof. Let me write that down so I can remind myself when I'm honest. It's like we're all a work in progress. That's what I wish for myself, because I see such a big jump from 5 years ago that I hope in 5 years. It's just only from here on out, once you kind of are more conscious of yourself and your emotions and your ego, it's only up from here. So that's what I'm hoping.
That's really powerful, and I think that it is only up from here, right? And like you're self-aware, you're able to recognize it. I see you moving in these ways, even in the ways that you're speaking and sharing with me. So it's only up from here, boo.
I'll re-listen to this interview.
And so my last question, you spoke about what you wish for yourself, but what about for queer Peruvians?
What do I wish for queer Peruvians? I wish for more spaces. I just wish for more spaces that we can meet one another, because I know we're out there. I know there is, but it's like one in one city, one in another city. I just wish for us to have community, a space, even if it's online, just so you don't feel so alone. Because imagine if I was 13, 14 and I had seen this on Instagram, or I had, seen that there was like a queer Peruvian barbecue happening. I would have gone. I would have felt just so comforted knowing that Peruvians and Peru and the accent and the food comfort me so much. The queer community comforts me so much. If only there was a space for both of us, for all of us, because I know that we have all felt similar emotions concerning both identities. So just more spaces and rest. And rest, because I know the labor I've gone through. Oh my God, I can't imagine everyone else.
So more spaces and rest.
Oh, yes.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all that with me. Thank you for telling me, your story. I don't take it lightly. I'm just really grateful. I'm grateful to know you as a friend, and I'm grateful to, have been able to share in this moment with you. Is there anything else you wish to share with me before we wrap?
No, I feel like we've talked about so much, and I'm so grateful that you're like talking to so many queer Peruvians. You got to get us all together for like a Puebla Brasa get together.
I know, right?
Yeah, let me tell you, people are going to listen to this. They're going to read this. they're going to feel so seen, like so seen, because these spaces don't exist, but you're creating it. You're like putting it together, and I mean, people are going to really enjoy this. So thank you. Thank you. I love it. These are questions I've never been asked before. I've never even thought about. Um, you doing good work, amiga.
Thank you, amiga. Thank you for saying that, for the affirmations, for the words of love, the energy. You know, you've been supporting me from day one.
Yeah, boo.
And you know, these spaces are gonna get made.
Yeah,
I think in naming it, I think in naming that we need more spaces. I think we right like and it doesn't. This is one space, right? But there can be so many, and I know that there are folks doing it, right? There's
yes, I want to help. I want to do something like.
you know, we'll do it. We'll do a parrillada, we'll do a pollada, we'll do whatever it is. Un perreo pa Peru.
Don't, that would be so good. That's what needs to happen. That's what needs to happen. Exactly. By even just thinking about it,
Mhm.
it will be made.
It will be, right? Like we're able to do it. I really believe in
I
this.
think so.
Thank
I
you so much, amiga. I'm going to officially stop the recording.
Woo.